Good afternoon. My name's David McKeown and I'm a postgraduate research student at Bristol Law School on the Sustainable Futures Pathway. And today I'm really delighted to be joined by James Thornton, who is a lawyer, activist, writer, and CEO of ClientEarth. James, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and speak with us. Law can unquestionably play an important role in environmental activism. But what would your message be to students who are aspiring to engage with these sorts of environmental issues through law?
Keep going. Seriously, what has been the case is that law has taken a deeper and deeper role in protecting the environment since the beginning, and only through creating systems of rules that are rules that are understandable, participatory, as you said, and ones that are agreeable to the regulated communities and to the affected parties. Can you wind up protecting nature, protecting the climate? So, I think of law as a system of rules that is agreed at any one point. It's like a photograph, really, of what does a particular society believe is important, and that's what the law shows. So as we go forward and as we're creating greater regulation to protect oceans, to protect the climate, all of these things are developing quite quickly. There's more law to make, so we need more good environmental lawyers, and then there's more law to enforce, so we need more good environmental lawyers. People who really understand environmental law are going to take, I think, a more and more central place in society as it goes forward, because these things aren't easy to do. Having a system of rules that regulates humans' interaction with the extreme complexity of nature in a way that becomes harmless is what we're looking for. That's not an easy thing to conceive or to put in place or to enforce. One of the other cool things about environmental law is that what I like about it is that it's based on science. So, I run an organization called ClientEarth, and the reason we called it ClientEarth is we like to think of the Earth as the client, right? And everybody who lives on the Earth as the client. And if you're a lawyer, you have to talk to the client. So how do you talk to the client if you're an environmental lawyer? It's through science. So science tells you what the Earth needs, what these systems need, and then because that understanding is deepening and changing all the time, the environmental law and regulations will always be constantly evolving. So it's a living system, unlike many areas of law. I mean, a competition lawyer, a friend of mine who's much wealthier than I am because he's a competition lawyer, told me over dinner once that competition law was kind of interesting when I got involved because it was new, but over the last 20 years or so, it's all become very standardized. And now he said, what I do is I just fight for one big company against another big company to move money from one box to another box. Like, who cares? I don't do anything good for the world, really. And he said, what you do is you're trying to create a whole system of rules and enforce existing rules that allows society to move forward in its relationship with the Earth. So it's always evolving. It'll never be a boring, formal, fixed system, and that's what I like about it. It's one of the few areas of law that is itself a living system, and it has to be. And yes. The lawyers who are doing it are the ones who will be making it. So one of the really cool things about working at ClientEarth is that all of the lawyers there are doing things that have never been done before. That's not normal in any kind of profession, even if you're a surgeon, and certainly not among lawyers. And so most of what you're doing when you're working in this space and doing it at the cutting edge is completely new. And when you're doing it, that if you're successful, you personally will help save civilization, because that's what we're working on now. So with all the problems, civilization potentially in danger, these rules and these understandings are what give the possibility for civilization, for us, to save the future for our descendants. So is environmental law important? Wow, it's really important. The other thing that we've been doing, which is very cool, is bringing other areas of law into the service of the environment. So this is another thing to consider as while you're studying. So about 5 years ago, we said, if you're going to save the environment, you have to move the money in the right direction. So you have to move trillions of dollars away from investment in fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas, all of that. You have to move all that money to renewable energy, for example. That's a really good example. So, well, how do you do that? When we said environmental law on its own isn't enough, because it regulates bad behavior, but it doesn't go to the heart of the money and the decisions about where money go and the responsibilities of how to spend money in the right way. So we said, okay, let's become experts in company law, in securities law, in banking law, in the law of fiduciary duty, in pensions law, in insurance law. So we brought in colleagues who are experts in all those things. And we said, okay, this is all the law that has to do with decisions about money. How do we use the obligations that are already in those legal arenas to change behavior so that it improves for the environment? And that's been a really interesting puzzle. So how do you look at securities law as if it were environmental law? How do you look at banking law as if it were environmental law? And we've been doing very cool things. So when you think of working as an environmental lawyer, go back to your beautiful word, holism. We look at the whole of law and we say, how do we use all of that? How do we use all of those tools to improve human beings' interaction with the planet and make it harmless and make it fruitful?
Yeah, I think that's like an amazing description, especially like this inclusion of different types of legal practices, because I think that's the thing, is that sometimes law can seem like quite a dry or like stodgy subject, but actually it's incredibly creative when it's directed at meaningful problems. And I think like if you've got something like a particular climate issue that you want to try and address or try and get your teeth into, you can actually have a very creative experience asking yourself, what kind of methodology or approach are we going to try and go down here? And yeah, that like interdisciplinarity between law and different perspectives on law is really, really interesting to hear that you're doing that at ClientEarth. I know that in the law school there's been collaborations between environmental lawyers and sort of employment lawyers, and I think that is as a pattern to see manifesting in different places is so encouraging, because it seems to suggest that there's a breaking down of this old-fashioned conception of what nature or what the environment might be, and a movement towards something that is more akin to our own experiences, and hopefully that will produce some encouraging results. I think to have someone in the law school who's so heavily involved with climate activism is really important, because I think that a lot of the ideas that we have need to be directed towards praxis, because the urgency of what we're looking at as well is something that is irrespective of what line of environmental law you're engaged in. I think it is always important to bring it back to praxis and think about how we can actually make forms of actual progress and change in this area. And I think Bristol Law School is very fortunate to have someone like you who's been successfully doing that for many years now, to speak with students and encourage them, and hopefully encourage them to study environmental law. I think most important.
And you're right. Praxis is what it's all about. It's what we do, and ideology has no place in it. It's about what you can actually do. And when you get the sense that you can do something, it generates enormous hope in yourself and in others. So we wrote a book called ClientEarth, and when we go around to talk about the book, people in every audience come up afterwards and say, I was really anxious or depressed about climate change. But now that I've heard you, I see that a small group of people can actually do something very meaningful. So, so you've given me hope again, and I think that's very important. There was a study last week that 70% of young people have anxiety about climate change. Very understandable. But for me, how you get beyond that anxiety is to say, there is something I can actually do about it. And for people studying law, I mean, there's an immense amount that they can do about it. So it's a really self-empowering, hope-giving activity that you can share with others.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think that's it in a nutshell. If you're in the fortunate position to study it, you have an amazing opportunity to do something, and hopefully that is a message that will stick with many students. Because it's a very important time to do it, I think.
I've always loved working with students, and I love the opportunity of the students have of thinking about things from square one, and imagining how things should be, and imagining what would the law have to look like if we were really going to save the planet, if we're really going to save civilization. And if you go into it that way, you will see things in a different way, and that's an amazing opportunity, and an amazing opportunity for me to be an honorary professor. It's a big deal.